brothers and sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice, oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed, Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice, Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey, Jimmy Lakey.
Well, here I am, my friends. Just as the choir has informed you and warned you, I am behind the microphone. Lakey has been unleashed. If this voice sounds familiar with you on the iHeartRadio app or maybe on the Spotify, that's because years in corporate radio, then I was unleashed into from the confines of there, and here we are together independently and entrepreneurially together once again. Good to have all of you here tuned in. What is today? The 17th day of April, year of our Lord, 2025. Pleasure to have you here. Scott checks in from Wyoming Way on the chat rooms. So, by the way, we have the chat rooms open to everybody. That means any platform that you're listening to is in the live stream this morning. So if you're on any of the Facebook feeds we're on, if you're on any of the Twitter feeds, the Rumble feed, the Instagram, if you comment, almost all those comments will go right into a chat room, and producer Chad has the ability to flash them across the bottom of the screen. Those of you listening later in the day to this podcast of this, I'll try to, if you hear me quote somebody out of context, it's probably I'm reading something from the chat room. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Democrats continue. We talked about this yesterday. Double down on stupid. We'll dive into a couple more topics of that. Even James Carville, who for a while was sounding rather reasonable for the Democrats, but I think I don't know, he was sipping at something, and he's now said the Democrats need to really stay on this MS-13 thing. They really need to defend the gangbangers, and so we'll talk about some of that. Also, Boasberg, remember the rogue judge that got told by the Supreme Court, you don't even have jurisdiction on this case that you're shutting down Trump on? Well, Boasberg doesn't care. Boasberg has gone rogue, and Boasberg has said he's now thinking about holding people in contempt for not obeying him on a case that he has no jurisdiction on. So we've got some news for you. Donald Trump is nearly undefeated at the Supreme Court once it gets there. So anyway, we'll follow that story. I've got that story. The Fed, Jerome Powell, evidently is not going to cut interest rates. He says he's not going to cut interest rates until he has some clarity on what our policies are going to be about tariffs. A lot of folks piling on Jerome Powell, saying that sounds a little bit political. You're supposed to not be reacting to what happens to tariffs, but you're supposed to be preemptive, and you're supposed to be doing the best policy looking forward, not waiting for political policy before you make a decision. So a lot of folks unloading on the Fed chair this morning, including Donald Trump. He went to Truth Social and gave Jerome Powell a piece of his mind. So we'll talk about that throughout the course of the morning. And let's see. I've been meaning to get to this. You're going to hear it. I'm headed to the airport once again today, and I see signs at every airport I've been flying to recently. Get ready for Real ID, REAL ID. You might have heard of this, and Real ID is something that after the 9/11 Commission came out, they said we probably need a more consistent type of identification. Every state has a different driver's license, and so to scan it, it's different technology or the hidden markers and stuff. So we should have something, a Real ID, and here's a national standard. So either use, I will either use him for, use the passport for your either use the passport for your identification, which is kind of a one standard, or let's come up with a Real ID. So for 20 years, they've given states, over 20 years, they have given states the option of having their own rules and on the Real ID, but they're told they have to convert to a Real ID soon. Nobody's done it. And every administration for over 20 years has let these things slide by. And so it looks like the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, is behind it. And she says we're going to get that Real ID in the next month. So no more putting this off states. But I'll tell you, it's just a really interesting story about government implementation, and the Congress and the government come out with a plan and they say it, and then they just 20 years, they just keep pushing it down the road, and now it's going to come to fruition finally under Kristi Noem. Anyway, we'll talk more about that. All right, I got a question of the day this morning. By the way, wherever you're joining us from throughout the morning, people join and join and join. Glad to have you. Always let us know where you're listening or watching from. If you're watching us live, don't forget, if you comment in the Facebook comments below, they pop right in here to the studio. Same with, Rumble. We're there on the Rumble. You can comment there, and it shows up there in the studio. If you're on the YouTube this morning, good morning to YouTubes of the U. We'd love to have you comment as well. I know we got a couple of people on the YouTube already, and a lot of people go back throughout the day and watch it. So anyway, say good morning to us. Let us know. Jim says good morning from FOCO. You're out of the state. That means Fort Collins. It's like if they go WeHo, that's West Hollywood. If you go Soho, that's South Hollywood. And if you go FOCO, that's Fort Collins. I'm hip and trendy on that. So just letting you know what a FOCO means for those of you maybe listening outside of the Colorado area. All right, let's dive into a couple of these. Oh, the question of the day. Got a question of the day. I saw this and I thought this was quite interesting. We're going to get to news. Don't worry. The question of the day, and I want all of you to respond to all the platforms out there, and we'll get back to the news here in a second. But what is the most polite and kind and demure way to tell someone to go pound sand or to tell someone to go F themselves? F off is what it says on your screen. What's the most polite way to do that? Going pound of sand is not a polite way to say that. So it's a real question I want you to comment on. I've got some ideas of some of the best ways to do that, and just how do you do that? You know, it's kind of like in the South, when you say bless your heart, that really means you're kind of stupid. Bless your heart. Or you're kind of naive or non-understanding. And the way you say it, the tone you say it, and whether you say it to someone's face, all of this matters on the interpretation of the phrase bless your heart. So that's one of the responses when people were asked, what's the most polite way to tell someone to F you? And a lot of folks said, well, just say bless your heart. You do it that way. You got to do that with a Southern accent. You really got to do. Give me some other ways. Some people said on one of the answers on the survey they did, they said, have the day that you deserve as you walk away from it all. I hope you have the day that you deserve. It's hard for you to call you out on that because it could be meant in a nice way, but a lot of times it's not. So that's one of the top answers. Bless your heart and have the day that you deserve. And it's really the tone of how you do it. If you're going to say it nicely, you got to say it nicely, say it politely. So there's your question of the day. It's not all that positive, but it is funny. What is the top way that you can tell someone to F off? Somebody's already, see, they're already jumping in here on this one. Ain't you special? You say it the right. If you go, ain't you special? Yeah, it's condescending. But if you go, well, ain't you special? Answer of the day, Scott says you should say pound sand and have a nice day. See, that doesn't sound polite to me. I was supposed to do the nice, polite way to say it. Have the day that you deserve. RJ says the best way here in South to say F off is, well, bless your heart. See, that's one of the top answers, bless your heart. But if you're from New York or Massachusetts and you're trying to throw away a bless your heart, it's just not going to come across the way. So anyway, this is the Ray says he's chiming in on the YouTube. He says, get bent or suck it up, buttercup. That's one of mine. Suck it up, buttercup. But again, that's not polite. Get bent. Again, some of you are missing the operative word. I didn't say a different way to say F off. I said a polite way to say it. See, some of you are showing that you haven't thought of the polite way to say it. Just because you don't say the naughty word doesn't mean that you're being polite. Just letting you know the polite way to say and tell someone to F off. I'll give you a couple more answers and you can chum around on these, and I will come back and refer to some of your comments. But let me know. I'll give you a couple of more that are on the top. One is noted. Note evident. If someone's a jerk, sends you a long ranting email, you can reply with one word answer, and that's supposedly the worst because it's very dismissive. And so if someone sends you a big long ass email and you're not one to tolerate it, and you're thinking, yeah, they're micromanaging, you just put noted, and that's all you do. And that's evidently a nice way to say pound sand or get bent. It's a nice way to say those things. Some people say that the best way to do that is to just smile, which is just smiling can be a big FU. This answer was shared by someone who works in the fast food industry and said, when you're getting screamed at and you're watching their blood boil, just smile. Just don't respond and just smile. And that it can communicate that. So anyway, here's another one. I'll give you one more that people say this is a nice way to say screw you, F off, is I'll pray for you. Now that one works if you're religious, I guess. And I don't know if I want to bring prayer into it when I'm trying to tell someone to screw you, unless you really mean it. I always say to them, I'll be praying for you. And you never bent a knee in prayer for me, but you said it. I don't like the cliche. I'm not a fan of that one. I'll pray for you. I don't like that as a way to say screw you. I mean, I don't think that means that. If you really mean you're going to pray for someone, you're going to pray for someone. Anyway, all right. There's a lot of other options here. I've got a whole list of people that have responded in a survey of the nicest way to say screw you or F off. So let us know. That's Scott says, you say, well, that's amazing. Yes, that's amazing. Another Scott says, when have you ever known you? Yeah, Scott says, I'm lecturing on being polite, and Scott's saying I'm never polite. Well, this is true. Well, that was the point of the exercise, to try to find a polite bone in your body. All right, good to have you here. Let's get back to some news, but a question of the day we'll come back to and pontificate and proliferate on is the nicest way to tell people, or to tell someone to pound sand, or have relations with yourself, or get out of here. If the nicest way to do that, and please let us know what that is. That's amazing. Yeah, I like that one. That's probably a good one. All right, let's get in the news here. It's fascinating that we have this constant dribble that's continued for now over a week about a Maryland man. A Maryland man was deported and sent to El Salvador. A Maryland man and a father of one were deported. And the dribble and the CNN and the MSNBC, they continue to push this lie that this guy was a Maryland man. I want the truth to be known about who this fellow was, and the truth is coming out, and I think it's important to double down. We hit on it some yesterday, but I think it's really important to just continue to hit it, because they're continuing this dribble that there is some Maryland man, a father, that was just sucked up off the street out of nowhere, as if he was born under the American flag and sang Yankee Doodle Dandy for his first grade choir concert. That's what they're portraying, a Maryland man. And a lot of folks are just ignorant as to who the Maryland man is. The Maryland man has a long track record as a violent, repeat wife beater. There's police reports now circulating because the guy had gone to court that he was a violent and repeated wife beater. Again, do the research out there. When they say the Maryland man, first of all, he's not a Maryland man. He's a man from El Salvador. He was shown by two different judges, actually three different judges, to be here in the United States illegal. He was marked for deportation because he was a violent wife beater, and because there was speculation of other crimes that he had committed against humanity. And El Salvador said, we want him back here. He's a criminal. And a judge stepped in at the last minute and said, yes, he's an illegal, and yes, he's probably should be deported, but we cannot deport him to El Salvador. And so they released him until another trial until they did that. Well, when Donald J. Trump decided that MS-13 and Tren de Aragua were going to be dubbed as terrorist groups, all of a sudden you can no longer put a deportation hold on someone that is a terrorist. And so it didn't work out. And that's how but he was on a hold. The courts had admitted that this guy was a dangerous illegal, but with some good lawyering, he had someone convince the courts that if he went back to El Salvador, someone was going to kill him. And so he kind of claimed status of refugee status here, and he's been here ever since. Well, what the previous court judge, after two or three judges say this guy's a criminal, we should deport him, one judge says, yes, we should deport him, but you can deport him anywhere except El Salvador because they'll kill him there. And who's going to kill him? Well, a gang. And they named the gang in the court. And then they find out, the judge says, oh, that gang sounds really nasty. They'll kill you. Keep him here. Deport him anywhere, but don't send him back to El Salvador. Well, the truth comes out that now that gang that him and his lawyers had said was going to kill him doesn't even operate in El Salvador. So this nonsense that this Maryland man was sent off to the Guantanamo of El Salvador, and he's just a Maryland man wanting to get home. Somebody, I heard on one of the talk shows, it might have been The View, they said it would just be so nice. He could come back and he could see his family, and he could go back to work. Go back to work? You ought to see the rap sheet that he had, and you ought to see what he was accused of and has been accused of doing here in the United States. So, again, when you just keep hearing this dribble over and over again, they're doubling down on stupid. They're doubling down on a narrative that is a falsehood, and unfortunately, some people will believe the falsehood. So I want you to do the research, and always remember, if they're saying it in the media, if they're saying it on the big screen with the coiffed hair and the Aquanet, you probably should call it into question and recognize that there's something called the Mockingbird media out there, and an operation that a lot of them just read the scripts. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know if it's true. They just read the scripts, and they assume that the scripts that they are fed are actually legitimate and not indoctrination. There's a story at Just the News, I think you'll find also, that Kilmar, this is a guy's name, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He was stopped in Tennessee with an expired driver's license. It also was wanted in domestic abuse, a protective order requested by his wife. So when they say, oh, he needs to go back to his wife and child, his wife has a restraining order on him. His wife doesn't want him to come back there, according to Just the News. Let me read from Just the News. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man, was stopped in Tennessee driving with an expired license and also a subject of a domestic abuse protective order that had been requested by his wife, records show. Now she is making television appearances and participating in fundraising efforts that have netted her almost $200,000. So let me get this straight here. They keep telling you on indoctrination networks that the Maryland man, the poor little father that got sent off to El Salvador, needed to come back and see his wife and kids and go back to work. Well, it just turns out that he has been researched and investigated for and had a restraining order put on him by his wife's request. Also, here's something else the media is not telling you about them. You know, Donald Trump is mean. Donald Trump, the orange guy, bad. The Biden administration in 2022 listed this man, the Maryland man, in an investigation. They said he was a suspect alien. This is the Biden administration, and he's a suspect alien who is possibly involved in, here's the quote from the report from the Biden administration, human trafficking, human smuggling. And all of this comes out now as a traffic stop that was hundreds of miles from his Maryland home, according now to the Department of Homeland Security. Just the News, which is the John Solomon news outlet, really solid stuff there. The records don't indicate whether the Biden administration ever followed up on their concerns. So he was pulled over in Tennessee. The Department of Homeland Security raised a flag and said, hey, we have an issue here. This guy is suspected of human smuggling, human trafficking, also under an intense battle with his wife for a restraining order. And according to the Tennessee Department of Tennessee law enforcement, they say he was observed speeding and unable to maintain his lane and subsequently pulled over. Encountering officer decided not to cite the subject for driving infractions, but give him a warning citation for driving with an expired license. Maryland is one of those states that issue driver's license to illegal aliens. So Tennessee said, well, it's expired, so you can't do that. The circumstances of the stop led the trooper to believe that human trafficking was involved. According to a summary of the incident report by the Homeland Security's alert system, on December the 26th, 2022, now, again, who was running Department of Homeland Security in 2022? It was Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security. They had an alert go off during the interview. Subject pretended to speak less English than he was capable of and attempted to put encountering officer off track by responding to questions with questions. When asked what relationship he had with the registered owner of the vehicle, the subject replied the owner of the vehicle is his boss and that work is construction. There was no luggage in the vehicle, according to the report that sounded off alarms in the Biden Department of Homeland Security, leading the encountering officer to suspect that human trafficking was an incident happening right there. So this Tennessee officer didn't have the proof, but he said, I think I caught somebody in some type of human trafficking thing, and there's no luggage in the vehicle. The records indicate that the incident was located by Homeland Security investigations during a review of computer-aided dispatch reports. So the Tennessee folks didn't even flag it, really. Department of Homeland Security was scrolling around and seeing what was happening out there and said, wow, this is troublesome. This illegal. Driving through Tennessee, we didn't cite him, but he was in our crosshairs. We should. He's flagged. but there's no record showing us whether the Biden Department of Homeland Security ever followed up on this matter. So the Biden Department of Homeland Security had already flagged Abrego Garcia as a suspected alien, and it goes on from there. So all these people that are out there trying to feed you some narrative about this suspected Maryland man that's being just treated very naughty, it's all propaganda and it's all lies, and it's that's exactly what it is. Let me post the piece up from Just the News. John Solomon and their crew always do a great job in reporting, but there's a hell of a lot of lies going on about who this Maryland man is. And the Democrats that can find themselves on the wrong side of stupid. You hear this Maryland Democrat we talked about yesterday traveled to El Salvador, but they wouldn't let him visit with Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, a man that 3 courts have said who was in Maryland illegally. Man that the Department of Homeland Security under Joe Biden had flagged and should have been following up on. Now the media and Senator Chris Van Hollen have decided that they're going to be very worried about him. So Chris Van Hollen, in a publicity stunt, was unable to visit Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia at the maximum security mega prison. Instead, the Democrat announced he then met with the El Salvadorian vice president and vowed to keep pressing for answers and for the man's release. And for the man's release. Now, think of this. Chris Van Hollen wants the guy released. For what? The guy was noted by 3 judges to be a gangbanger. He was noted to be an illegal and noted to be a threat to our country. One judge said, yes, he's a bad hombre, but you can't send him back to El Salvador. They'll kill him. So that was the quagmire. And you have Van Hollen saying, send him back to the United States. And El Salvador says, under what grounds? There's no warrant for his arrest. There's no extradition. Nobody's filed charges against him. The only charges filed against him were deportation charges, and he has now been deported. And he is an El Salvadorian citizen, so no, we're going to keep him here. We're going to smuggle him back into the country. You're going to put him on a plane with Chris Van Hollen, the senator, and see if he can get through immigrations and customs enforcement. I mean, Chris Van Hollen is an absolute bonehead thinking, and if you think this is anything but a publicity stunt, you're absolutely incorrect, because there's no way that this guy would ever get back in the country because he's been deported and the U.S. doesn't have any, there's no charges filed against him. He had a deportation claim. Very worst case scenario, I guess you drop him and touchdown in America, have a quick hearing, and then ship him off to Haiti or some other place, and then they're going to really cry about the human rights of this poor guy. Again, the narrative out there is a lie. And the optics of this are just amazing. Chris Van Hollen goes down and says, release the prisoner to me. And I don't know if Chris was on an Air Force plane or if he flew private down to El Salvador. But the moment you land on the tarmac in the United States of America, on what grounds and what passport and what visa is this jackass coming back in here? And law enforcement does not have any hold on him. So, again, it's really bizarre, but the Democrats on the stupid side of this one. And then I find it just so amazing. I mentioned Carville gone wild. For a couple of months, he was actually kind of telling the Democrats to stop being bat crap crazy. But now he says their top agenda. Does anybody believe this is the real best agenda, the best way for the Anybody believe that this is the best way for the Democrats to position themselves? James Carville, the Democrat strategist, said the party's top agenda needs to be focused on retrieving El Salvadorian gangbanger Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Any of you Democrats out there that lurk in the shadows and you don't comment, I'd love to hear if you think that James Carville's advice that the top priority, he says, of your party right now needs to be focused on El Salvadorian gangbanger Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I would love to see that. I think that's it's like, did somebody slip James Carville $20 and say, hey, $20, say something stupid to help the Democrats out? Here's what he said in Politics, the War Room, a podcast. He said, well, we should really fight on this turf, or we should fight more ordinary people, he says. This is one we should fight on. You can't pivot on an economic issue. That's why we're here, where we're at as a country. So he says, this is all, I think he's saying this is all you got, Democrats. It's all you got. You're going to have to fight for the illegal. Is there anybody out there that has any, I guess, common sense when it comes to their political strategies? Is there anybody out there that thinks that James Carville is giving them great advice? James, I'll give you another $20 if you'll give him another boneheaded idea. Another boneheaded idea. I would love to do that for you. Here's another one. This is Breitbart. This is a great story. Again, Democrats, if this is your strategy, keep it going. There are 2 Democrats, a pair of House Democrats, who now say they want to conduct welfare checks on illegal aliens who were deported from the United States to El Salvador. Now, the U.S. Congress wants to spend American dollars to go to El Salvador and check out their prison. What does this have to do with America? These people were deported because they were not Americans. These people were illegal aliens, many from El Salvador, and they have been returned to their home prison and their home nation. And there's some Venezuelans mixed in there because Venezuela doesn't want their criminals back. So, but think of the boneheaded idea. And these are people like a House Oversight Committee chairman, in a letter to House Oversight Committee James Comer, Representative Robert Garcia of California, shouldn't surprise you, and Maxwell Alejandro Frost of Florida have requested the committee to approve travel to El Salvador so that they can visit at least 2 illegal aliens who were deported last month. We need to have welfare checks on these prisoners down there. What jurisdiction do you have to do welfare checks? They're not American citizens. They never have been American citizens. They have been charged as criminals in U.S. court. They had actual deportation hearings and tags put on them. ICE, Customs and Immigration Enforcement, they wanted them. And yet you have these jackwagon Democrats going down there and say, we would like to approve travel for us to go down there and visit these illegal aliens and just make sure they have a pot to pee in or whatever they're going to check on it. What's the welfare check? They said, we respectfully request authorization for a congressional member delegation to visit the Centro del Confinamiento CICOT maximum security prison in El Salvador. So they basically want to junk it. They say, hey, we're really concerned about these people, and we got a lot of insider trading money, but we're not going to spend it on our own to go down there. We want to junk it. Could we get approved by the Congress to go down there with a fancy airplane and check out this prison? It's really bonehead. Again, Democrats just stay right at it. I think it's a fantastic look for all of you. I think it is. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. Jimmy is my name. We're getting question of the day. What is the nicest way to tell somebody to F off? What is the nicest, most polite way for you to say, go pound sand? That is our question of the day, and also all the other topics that you hear me yapping about here on the program. You're welcome to yap back on all the platforms. Don't forget Facebook, Twitter, all these things. When you comment, even Rumble shows up right here in the studio, and we always love to read those comments. That's if you're watching it live. If you're listening on the podcast later in the day, or you're back on some of the streams, we don't see those live in the studio, obviously. But if you're watching us live, then you know that we are. You know exactly what it is that we're reading. We're reading comments that come on the screen. And also, what's the most polite way to tell somebody to F off? Whatever topic you want to sound off on in the chat room, feel free to do so. All right, Jimmy, the Democrats were okay with returning Elian Gonzalez. This is from Ray on YouTube. The Democrats were okay with returning Elian Gonzalez back to Cuba, but they want an illegal alien returned to the United States. Just a little bit of hypocrisy. Anybody remember Elian Gonzalez? Democrats wanted him shipped back there. His mother had died in the on the raft trying to get him here, and he ended up with family of him, but his father was still back in Cuba, and their father was still back in Cuba. And anyway, the U.S. government, Janet Reno, remember that famous machine gun automatic weapon pointed at the boy hiding in the closet, cowered in the arms of his uncle? Yeah, the Democrats really, they wanted Elian back there to be raised as a commie. They wanted Elian back there, Elian Gonzalez, and now they want this illegal back here. If the Democrats had no standard, didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any at all. All right, I mentioned this again, and we're going to be talking to Mary Graybar in just a moment. She wrote a book called Debunking FDR. And if you've been a Patreon subscriber, or if you are now on our new podcast platform at the Lakey Unleashed podcast, you will be able to, as of today, find the interview that used to be housed at Patreon. It's relocating over to the podcast platform of iHeart, Spotify. It's repurposing there. It's going to relocate there. And that will be today. And Mary Graybar and I did a great interview. I thought it was a fantastic interview. Very smart lady. Wrote a book about the debunking FDR. And the real piece of trash that FDR was, his personal life, his political life, his aspirations, his narcissism. She debunks all the myths that you might have been taught about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Well, in just a moment, Mary Graybar is going to be on the show talking about, if anybody knows the history of big government in the United States, it's somebody who has studied FDR, and Mary's going to jump into the conversation that there's states now saying that they're going to go doging their own economy, looking for government inefficiency and waste. So we'll talk to Mary Graybar. Supposed to be on any moment now. We're awaiting her arrival. That's coming up. And also, I'm mentioning the new Patreon, not Patreon. Oh, that's Jimmy, having trouble donating to Rivers Promise. Can you give the correct info for donating? By the way, that's a great, thank you for doing that, Rachel. I appreciate you doing that. For the next 12 hours or so, we will have intermittent. Our entire backdrop of the of our website is changing as far as where we process. There's some people that are processing ACH checks, and we realized that they were not interfacing with our network any longer, and we've just totally changed up our credit card processing. So, Rachel, thank you. If you are donating, keep trying, and if not, send me an email. If it doesn't start working the next hour or the next day, send me an email. I'll tell you where you can mail a check. But the back end of our website is being fixed up right now by a new credit card processing company. It's in transition right now. So if any of you are trying, I appreciate you mentioning that, Rachel. I thought that was going to go out on Facebook post this morning. I haven't put that out yet, but I'll get that out, that there could be some difficulties on the Rivers Promise donation side. Thank you. Should be rectified very soon, though. Should be rectified soon. All right, the new Streamcast, if you're listening on the Rumble, if you're listening on the Rumble's a live stream. If you're listening on Podbean, I think, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all the platforms now have this show live and all the interviews. It goes out there and throughout the day. So go to the platforms that you do the podcast on and like and subscribe and make sure you're downloading them. I listened last night to one of the episodes. I had not done it. I liked and subscribed my own podcast, and I listened to it. And listen, it comes across pretty good as a podcast, even though some of you are watching it for the beauty of my face right now, but it does come off pretty good as a podcast. So I think you'll enjoy it. And all the interviews, the Mary Graybar interview I just mentioned is going to go up there. This is one that just dropped this week, and it is regarding a lady who volunteered thinking she was going to save America, believing all the rhetoric and nonsense that Dr. Fauci had spread to her. She believed that she volunteered herself as a sacrificial lamb to become a clinical trial recipient of the booger cootie virus shot, the poke in the arm, that it would get things back to normal, because she believed Dr. Fauci and all these people that are supposed to be looking after the public health. She believed that they were really doing that, but they weren't, and this is her story. Her name is Brianne Preston. That interview is now up on all the Streamcast streaming platforms for the podcast. So Lakey Unleashed, go look for it. But this is a sample of it or two. Here we go.
That we're all there to share our stories and get the ball rolling on investigating these adverse events. Peter Marks skipped out of that meeting because he was approving Comirnaty that day, the booster, and he was doing press work with all of the media to make sure that people were consuming the booster. So instead of dealing with the Americans that were suffering from the fallout of his vaccine program, that he was very much involved in promoting these products, he went out, skipped out on that, and decided to go help Comirnaty, which was Pfizer, get their product in as many arms as fast as possible.
So back there I am. I'm back up there. So she's talking about this guy named Peter Marks. And while they were there, injured physicians and people that were in this clinical trial, they had found each other because they were all blind. They didn't know who was in the trial. And they found out a lot of them were having horrible reactions. She still to this day has a health issue she'll probably live with the rest of her life. She explains what that is in the interview. That's again, it's up at the Jimmy Lakey Unleashed Streamcast. Jimmy Lakey Unleashed Streamcast. It's up there, and you can do Brianne Preston. It's an interview that I just released it. It's the freshest interview I've done. And she talks about they're in the office waiting to explain to Mr. Marks that, hey, there's this injury registry that all of our clinical trials are supposed to be recorded in, and our data's not there. It's been blanked out. this is bad. We're going through physical hell because of these booger cootie virus shots, and nobody's recording it. It's like you're just keeping on going. As a matter of fact, when they were there for a meeting with Peter Marks, there at the National Institute of Health or wherever his office is at, he skipped the meeting at the last minute because they were there filing their case going, this is the problem we're having because we were clinical trial pincushions. These are the health issues we're having. This is how much time I've spent in the hospital. And Peter said, I can't be here because we're talking about a booster. And we're going to go tell everybody, go get the booster. This is the disregard that they taught. They really cared about public health and safety on these shots that they tried to mandate. And this is a lady in the interview that just thought she was doing the right thing, trying to help the country because Dr. Fauci told her so. And then while she was there actually with doctors who were also injured, trying to say, stop, you got to knock this off. This is not an official report, but here's what we told everybody. And they were not paying attention to them. And they're saying, we can't listen to you. We've got to go sell some more stuff for pharma. All right, and here's another clip and then we'll move forward. This is Brianna Preston talking about it. She's been injured because of that vaccine, if you will. I'm gonna say that's going to get everybody at the YouTube shut up. She got the shot, and she struggles to this day, but she doesn't regret it. She says she doesn't cite the verse, but that Bible verse that all things work together for good for them that love the Lord and called according to His purpose. Yeah, that one. Maybe you've heard of it. Anyway, this is Brianna Preston not necessarily regretting what happened to her.
Thing is, now I'm awake, wide awake. I see the truth exactly where it is, how it is. I understand how all the sides are playing with people and manipulating people, and that's an incredible gift. And I don't think I would have learned that any other way.
There, I got to hit the right button. She's very, I've got messages popping in. My guest just showed up finally, so I've got people popping in and saying, the guest is here, guest is here. I'm like, I know, I heard. She's happy. And she says she's glad she became a pincushion because had she not experienced what she experienced and became the pincushion for the clinical trial, she says she's actually glad that she took it and figured it out, that it was not good, poisonous, if you will. Because she knows for the fact she would have been the first mom in line before she got red pilled, before she woke up. She would have been the very first person in line to take her daughters or children down and get it. And now she's glad she saved them from the damage and the pain of that. So great interview. It's all free. It's out there, and it's at all the podcast platforms. You will find that Brianna Preston interview. Another one that is moving to that location is one I did a couple of weeks ago. It's about a 40-minute interview with Mary Graybar, who's about to hop onto the program now. And it's going to be a fun conversation. But if you want to have a real fun conversation, that Mary Graybar interview is moving today from the previous location to our Streamcast podcast platform, the Jimmy Lakey Unleashed Streamcast podcast. You can find it on iHeart, Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. You get the idea. Go find us out there, like and subscribe, and you can find that a previous Mary Graybar interview that I did a couple of weeks ago about her book, Debunking FDR, but kind of tying in the book with some news stories. Let's bring into the program Mary Graybar onto the stage. It looks like we have an audio only here. So let's, Mary, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Very good. I'll change that screen up here since you're an audio mic only and not a camera. Glad to have you on, Mary. I'm talking about the interview we did a couple of weeks ago. It's great to have you here on the program. FDR Debunked. Give the quick plug away of the book we talked about in that interview.
Well, my book covers FDR from his family background all the way down to, the early days of his presidency. And what I do is I look at him in terms of a person, the man and the myths. Who is the man behind these myths that we have of FDR as someone who saved the country from the Great Depression and defeated German fascism? So what I have done is looked at one of the big myths, which is that he was a traitor to his class, which is what Arthur Schlesinger said. He said that's why anyone would not like FDR. How could you not like him? He was for the working man and so forth. And that, in fact, is not the case at all. And the second big myth is that he was faced with this crisis when he assumed the presidency in 1933. When he was sworn in, we were in the midst of the greatest depression we've ever had. And he was just looking around to see how he could help the country. Well, in fact, that is not the case. Ever since he was a state senator in New York in 1912, at least, he was talking about changing the system. He said the founding fathers had it all wrong when they were just talking about independence. What they were really groping for is interdependence. And so he posited this situation where you have a farmer, and the farmer lets his fields go fallow. And he said, well, if the community needs, say, more wheat or corn or whatever it is, the government should be able to compel the farmer to grow those crops that are needed.
Yeah. So Mary, let me jump in. So it's an interesting book. It's called Debunking FDR, and you kind of tell the truth about the lies we've been told about FDR. But a lot of between Wilson and FDR, there are a lot of our big government programs and dependency of the government and dependency on the teat of government, if you will, for very survivals, started to build back in those days. And a lot of those institutions have been even grown further in modern day. And now we have the Doge thing going on. And Democrats to this day, the party of FDR, squawking about the Doge, they not wanting to trim back some of this fat. They talk about it. They don't want to. What do you think that FDR would have thought about getting Doged back in the days, his programs that he was implementing? Because he wanted reliance on the government. You think he would have appreciated the Doge committee?
Absolutely not. He would have fought just like Bernie Sanders and AOC are fighting to eliminate it. And, like all Democrats, he would have hated it. And, the big government programs, these were his baby. This was his life goal. He did not really respect the Constitution. He wanted a world government where he would sit side by side with Joseph Stalin and be represent the two strongest of the four powers and basically rule the world. So, Trump is the anti-FDR, and he said, in January, when he addressed Congress, he said he was going to shatter the New Deal coalition. And that is what he is doing. And other Republicans have tried it, and he is getting the closest to it. Yeah. But it is a huge task, as we're seeing.
It's amazing to see that we're unpeeling parts of the layers of the onion or scraping off part of the fungus that started back in the days of FDR. A lot of folks that were maybe remember the presidency of FDR are no longer with us, or the very late stages of their elderly life, because that was a long time ago, but we're still scraping that off the bottom of our foot this many years later.
Yes, absolutely. When he instituted Social Security, he is quoted as saying, now that I have that tax in there, no one is ever going to be able to remove that, but he used the other word, program. So he knew that this was going to be something that would last forever, that it would be almost impossible to eliminate. And that's the way it was designed, and all these other programs. So, the unemployment insurance, the banking insurance, taxpayers pay for banking insurance, but the insurance is used to bail out banks that are too big to fail, as we saw in the 1980s and then in 2008, 2009.
Wow. The voice of Mary Graybar, if you're joining us later in the day, not on the live stream, and you're not listening to viewing the audio, you're only hearing the if you're not viewing the video, you're only hearing the audio. Mary Graybar, she's the author of a book called Debunking FDR, and not only is this interview up on all the pages, but her interview from a couple of weeks ago is going to relocate to the podcast platform here today, and you'll be able to hear it on iHeart, Spotify, everywhere if you want to hear the down and dirty on FDR and his rise to fame and his plan for his own fame before his death. as you kind of got a tease of just a bit ago. Again, Mary Graybar, the name of the book is Debunking FDR. Mary, there is a new story that some of the states, I think Texas has now said, hey, this is a pretty good idea, this Doge thing. I'm proud of the motherland. I'm from the state of Texas. As a matter of fact, I'm flying there today. But I'm proud of the motherland, but it's kind of shocking that it's taken even Texas this long to say, yeah, we should Doge our own government. So on one hand, I'm happy that a state led by conservatives are ready to Doge himself and get rid of and have more government efficiency. But on the other hand, it kind of shocks me that even Republicans had not thought of this before.
Yes, I think, all 50 states should do it, especially the blue states. I'm up here in New York State, and, the money that has been wasted on illegal aliens invading this state is, unbelievable. So it needs to be done everywhere. And I don't think there has been anyone bold enough to challenge this, entrenched bureaucracy of left wingers who, play the pity card. They say, well, if you cut back on PBS, you're not going to have Big Bird for the little kids and these, Mr. Rogers and so forth. So it's about time. And we need to get back to, the pre-FDR days, the pre-progressive days. We need to eliminate it once and for all. And it's a huge task. And, we need the states also jumping in with the federal government.
Yeah. Mary Graybar, one more quick question. Again, back in time, I'm saying we're just now scraping out or off the bottom of our shoe. We're doging out of the government, some of the programs that were really strengthened and ballooned and even started by FDR. That was also an era of time in which the nation was transitioning within the last 10, 20 years. Before that and around that time, they had transitioned from the tariffs to the income tax, to the withholding, which we're kind of seeing some of the same discussion or similar discussion now about tariffs versus income tax. But the nation was at a transition back in those days, adjusting to this payroll withholding as opposed to the tariffs.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair to the working class. And as much as FDR claimed to be for the forgotten man, he was actually the enemy of the forgotten man, the man who, goes to work and pays the taxes and pays for the programs. And so, with tariffs, you're bringing back the jobs, you're bringing back living wages for people who are not part of the elite left-wing class. So, we need to reverse that as well. And instead of, getting bigger and bigger chunks taken out of paychecks of hardworking people, we need to bring those jobs back.
The name of the book, Debunking FDR, The Man, the Myth. The Man of the Myths is the kind of the subtitle of it, Debunking FDR by Mary Graybar. Mary, real quick, I'll let you give the tease. I know we did a long-form interview on this a couple of weeks ago. That's going up on my podcast, Lakey Unleashed, today, relocating from its previous location. It's going out there today. Everybody can listen to it absolutely free. Just go to your local podcast platform, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and that will be up there here in just a bit. The interview from a few weeks ago with Mary Graybar shall be there. But what's the most shocking thing? We've got about 30 or so seconds. If people read this or when they study it, you can tease it. The biggest lie we've ever been told about FDR, and kind of tease what the most shocking part of that was.
Well, the fact that he really did want to be a dictator. There was talk at the time by critics whose voices have been silenced by historians that claimed or accused him of being a dictator. And that is exactly what he wanted to be. He wanted to be the Lord of the nation, as Edmund Wilson put it, and he felt it was his birthright. And, he lied repeatedly. It's just shocking to see how quickly and easily he lied. He lied even when he didn't need to. And kind of built this myth up about himself that historians have run away with for the most part. And so what I do is I expose the real person who Franklin Roosevelt was. And, he died at a relatively young age.
The name of the book is called Debunking FDR. It's by Mary Graybar. Go get a copy of the book, but if you want to hear more about the life and times of FDR, make sure you're on our podcast platforms. iHeart is one of those. Make sure you're on all of them, and you can learn more about the lies about FDR. Did a long-form interview with her a couple of weeks ago. It's being relocated as I speak over to the new new stream on the iHeart, the Spotify, etc. Everybody stand by. We're going to be right back. We're going to play Meme Roulette. And then Jay Ratliff, our aviation travel expert, is going to be joining us here in just a moment. It's Lakey. I've been unleashed. Stand by. More to come.
1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning is on call 24/7, even on weekends and holidays. We pride ourselves in our on-time guarantees. In addition to installation and repairs, we offer maintenance services. So no matter when you need us, you can always count on 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning to keep your system running. Check out our family of brands for all of your service needs, including electrical and plumbing.
1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning.
How you holding up? Nothing wrong with getting help.
If I promise to look into it, will you drop it and help me build this fence?
Now you need my help.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
All right, here we are back here. Pleasure to be here while we're talking about great supporters and great sponsors like Corey Clinton, 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. Always a good public service announcement there to help our veterans out there. I want to remind you about Sherry Cree. Homeswithsherry.com is her website. I talk about her every day, and I need you to kind of get the hint here that she's does a phenomenal job. Again, her aspiration isn't just to sell a home for you. Her aspiration isn't just to find you your dream home. Her real aspiration goes better than that. She wants to become your realtor for life. So this is for her, not a play to, have a quick sale or a quick buy. Those are nice. Realtors, that's what they're in business for, right? Her objective is to become your realtor for life. She wants you to feel such a trust and a bond with her that you just know that she's looking out for you, and your real estate can build generational wealth. And that's what she has in mind for you, which is going to be the best purchase for you. Which is there some advice or some thoughts that she can give you? Is there a set of perspective that she can provide? Again, her job, her goal is not just to sell a house or help you buy a house. That's nice, but it's also to realize that your journey in real estate, where you live, your residency, rental properties, investments, whatever the case may be, is probably not just a one-stop shop, that everything needs to kind of build together, and you kind of grow those assets and real estate, and again, generational wealth. That's her goal. She wants to help you get there, and she wants to be your realtor for life. It's not just one stop. We'll see you. Nice knowing you. Call her in a couple more years and say, hey, I'm back. We're ready to make a transition here. And she's got so many clients that are repeat customers that they hunt her down, they find her, and they say, Sherry, you got to help us. We're going to move, or we're going to sell, we're going to buy. Homeswithsherry.com, anywhere under that I-25 corridor in Colorado. Get in touch with her again. The objective is a big picture. It's to become your realtor for life by helping you through your real estate journey, whether it's your starter home or whether it's your retirement home, as far as a ranch style or whatever. She wants to help you get there, and each step of the way. Homeswithsherry.com. You owe it to yourself to have a conversation. You're talking about selling. Maybe you're not even thinking, maybe it's going to be the fall before you're ready. Maybe you're not ready. You're going to be gone all summer. You don't want to have to mess with it. Put the strategy together now. Have that conversation. She's had people talk to her as much as a year or so out and come back and go, okay, we're ready now. It's not too early to start talking about your strategery. Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. And again, she wants to be your realtor for life. That's the aim. She wants to earn that position in your family's life. Homeswithsherry.com. Check it out. Have a conversation. And again, make sure you mention Jimmy Lakey, as I'm sure you will. Homeswithsherry.com. All right. I know a couple of you yesterday, if you're having trouble on our Rivers Promise side, I did receive notice that the transition on the back end is complete. And if you were having trouble making a donation, if it's just a one-off donation, go try it out right now. Everybody, let me know if it works. If it's not working, let me know on that as well. There have been some people that just got a notification a bit ago, and I rolled my eyes like, oh, I got to deal with this. when Mary Graybar was talking, that the transition on the website has been done, but there's some people that if you have an automated or recurring donation, for some reason, the back-end transition will be reaching out to you to let you know, hey, we got to reestablish it up. It was a big back-end change, but we had some real issues with their credit card processing and the fees, and trying to save some money, but it's been a pain, is what it's been. But that transition, I'm told, actually has happened. So, Rachel, I believe it's you. If you tried to make a one-off donation, go try again. Let me know if it works. If it's your automated recurring donation, I don't know. We'll be in touch with you, and that'll be good. All right, Star, hello, Star, says good morning. Scott comes in, another Scott. We got a lot of Scotts and Jims out there. That's the most popular name in the audience. FDR was horrible. My mom, her siblings were the Japanese Americans who were sent to internment camps. Yeah, those, he was not a good guy. Wilson, the whole lot of them that started the big government movement that we know now, they were not good guys. They were bigoted, racist, and also, remember, the Democrat Party was the one that voted against the Civil Rights Act. So, and they still probably not all that fond of civil rights. The truth be known, again, their coexist bumper sticker doesn't mean anything. If they don't like you, they'll burn your business down and tag your Tesla. That's the party of the modern day Democrat Party. All right, we're going to have Jay Ratliff here in just a moment, but we're going to go ahead and, if we can, do the meme roulette. And this is where, if you're new to the program, I spin this little lovely globe. It circulates around the world. And the little mantra that we say, it's not really an incantation because we are followers of Jesus here on the show. Didn't want to sound cultish or anything, but the little poem that I say is round and round the world we go, and where we steal the memes from, no one knows. And sometimes we tell you where we steal them from. So let's do it. It's a meme roulette, and this is the fun part of the program. And again, Jay Ratliff coming up here in just a second, aviation and travel expert. Round and round the world we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. First meme of the day. This came up from Grant Cardone. See, we do tell you where we steal the memes from. And this is a great thought. Let me get this straight. I'm paying taxes on my wages. Then I'm paying sales tax to spend my own money. And then I'm paying income tax on that money that was already taxed. And then when I die, my kids pay a death tax on my money that was already taxed. And then people hate on me for doing everything I can to reduce my taxes. This is true. They get very upset about, the rich people don't pay their fair share. Guarantee you they pay probably more of a fair share than most of us. And there's a reason. There is a reason that they do everything. We all do everything we can to not pay the taxes as much as we can legally. Round around the world we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Here we go. From the Babylon Bee, we steal. American hostages in Gaza disguise himself as MS-13 gang members so Democrats will fight to bring them home. That's an excellent point. How many American hostages? I think 7 still, 6 or 7 American citizens, actual American citizens that are in Gaza held by terrorists. And these American Democrats are not requiring welfare checks on them. This Chris Van Hollen from Connecticut or wherever the heck he's from, has he demanded, I don't know where he's from, has he demanded welfare checks on our American citizens that have been held hostage for over 2 years now? I don't think Chris has. But hey, that gangbanger that's not a U.S. citizen, he's going down there personally to check on him. And the Democrats filing resolutions out there to go have welfare checks on these El Salvadorian prisoners in El Salvador. But they haven't said much about welfare checks or demanding the release of American prisoners that are held in Gaza by terrorists. Round around the world we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Here we go. This is how kids became neighborhood legends before all you pansies came along. Anybody remember this scene? This might have been a scene from my the clothing in the black and white nature, probably a little before my time, but I was probably the little guy watching out the window going, "Mommy, can I go out and play?" And she said, "No, because you're going to get hit on by bikes that'll land on you," because that's what you did. Remember the ramps in the middle of the street? I'm trying to think, when was the last time you were driving in a neighborhood and you saw a bike ramp like we used to have when we were kids? Do kids still do bike ramps? Or are they too much sitting on their fat asses playing video games and not even out riding their bikes? I don't know. I don't know. It's a great point, though. Next time you see it's like a phone booth. I don't think you see bike ramps anymore. Probably because the helicopter moms pad their kids up in helmets and knee pads and say, you got to be safe on the bike. All of us survived bikes without helmets, and now you're afraid to go across the street without one. Not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying a lot of folks have survived drinking out of water hoses too, and riding in the back of pickup trucks. And now we strap kids in a $500, $600 baby chair in the back of a car, and we're like, we used to ride country roads in the back of Grand P's pickup truck. We didn't need no car seat. I sound like an old guy now. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Where's this one come from? After watching you burn down neighborhoods, this is a guy holding his hand up. After watching you burn down the neighborhoods, churches, and Teslas, you can now stop talking to us about a 3-hour riot 5 years ago. There's truth to that one. All you leftists, all you liberal trolls out there, after watching you continue to burn down neighborhoods, churches, and now you're burning down the Teslas and the dealerships and that violence, would you please stop lecturing us about some 3-hour riot from 5 years ago and daring to call it an insurrection? You have no moral high ground. And not a dang one of you in the media, in the Democrat Party, not a one of you have a moral high ground on that one. So stop it. Just knock it off, all right? I think we got one more here. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There we go. It's the, we might have milked the meme machine dry. We might have milked it dry. I apologize for that. Let me make sure Jay Ratliff is coming on here. He's our next guest up of the morning, and he's supposed to be on with us this morning. So we'll see. Sometimes he may lose the link. Let me see if I can make sure he has that link. Everybody, this is live. This is live communication here to find out where everybody's at. We'll see if he makes it in here. I might have needed to send him the link. It's the same link every time that these guys click, but some people like a refresher. They really do. All right, glad to have you here on the program. I just sent Jay the link, so he has it. I should have sent it to him last night, and forgot to send it. So, Jay, if you're out there listening, somebody says he's on? Yeah, that's I meant to send him the link, and I didn't do that, but I sent it to him just now. So anyway, glad to have all of you here on the program. Don't forget, our new stream is up. All these shows and all the interviews I do also now go on a podcast version. It's called Lakey Unleashed. And so you'll be able to hear this show and all the shows that we do. All the interviews we've done behind paywall are no longer behind paywall. And you can find all of those at iHeartMedia, Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Podbean. Any of the fine podcast players, go look up Lakey Unleashed, and that just launched. And it's doing quite well out there. People are liking it, subscribing it, and keep doing that. Even if you listen to the live show, go and make sure you never miss an episode of Lakey Unleashed. All right, Jay Ratliff, apologize I did not send you the link earlier. I just did. Jay Ratliff, aviation travel expert. Sir, how are you?
Well, to your credit, it never changes, so all I got to do is use the same one each time.
That's true. It doesn't, but I try to send a reminder, but it never changes. But glad to connect with you, sir. I'm headed to the airport today. My travel, I like the international travel more than I like this domestic stuff. It's domestic's a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, airlines make a lot more money on the international side of things, but a lot of things are changing on the domestic front. And we're seeing airlines right now. Frontier was the latest, and United, saying that the next year or two looks to be problematic. They're having some issues with regards to the advanced bookings, and they're saying, hey, we're cutting back. We're going to continue to do so as the demand for travel softens. And you and I have talked about that. When you have a situation where you have a reduction of seats capacity, basically, in the busy summer travel months of June, July, and August, it means the airfares are going to be higher. It's a high demand travel time for those that are traveling. And when airlines cut back on their available seats, it means those that remain are going to be offered at a higher price, and that's certainly going to be problematic for anyone who's yet to buy their ticket.
Yeah. Southwest Airlines is one of the ones we'll talk about in transition right now, and trying to weather the storm. They've made a lot of changes from their program for frequent flyers. They've made a lot of changes on what they're saying is going to be regarding their booking system and their bags fly free. But you have a story here. Changes are continuing, and the latest one is not necessarily going over well at all.
No, you travel quite a bit, and you've been given more than one time those travel vouchers, correct? Mm-hmm. When things go wrong, they give you the travel vouchers as an apology. And with every airline, those have a limit of normally 12 months, sometimes a little bit more, some a little less. Now, the decades I was in the airline industry at Northwest Airlines, we would do studies on how many of those vouchers were used. Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'll tell you that because I was going to ask you to tell me, but from a percentage standpoint, people are shocked when I tell them out of the, let's say we issue 100 vouchers when I was at Northwest Airlines, we would find only about 8% of them would ever get used.
Wow. I was going to go like 30 or 40%.
I know. And most people say, well, 50-50, 40%. But think about this. This is an airline that maybe, as all airlines do, they overbook flights. Maybe the customer service isn't where it needs to be. And they say, don't you worry, we're going to make it right. Here's a check. Now, it's not a check, but it's a voucher, good for $200 or whatever it might happen to be for future travel, as a heartfelt apology from the airline. Now, in the back of their mind, they're going, we're writing a check to 100 people that 92 of them aren't even going to cash. So the idea that there were any limits on those, as far as they have to be used in the next 12 months, worked to the advantage of the airline big time, and against, obviously, to the advantage of the passenger. Now, Southwest Airlines was the one airline that said, look, we're all about customers. We don't have any limits on our vouchers. If you want to use a voucher, we give you 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Go ahead. Well, that was the old Southwest. We found out this week that they're going to start putting limits of 12 or 6 months on these vouchers. So welcome, world. Southwest Airlines is now like everybody else, really frustrating. And it's, the bags being charged was something that really I understood. From a business standpoint, I get it. But when you pivot even further and you start applying these timelines, these voucher limits, if you will, knowing, as you and I know, that most people don't even use them, you don't even need to go there. Or say the industry average is a year. We're going to double that and make it 2 years. But the perception is, A, we don't care, and B, we know you don't care, and C, we still don't care. That's the message that the Southwest management is sending right now, and it is so contrary and as they're to what they have had over the last 50-some years. And the idea that their airfares are going up means that the idea that we can call them a low-cost carrier is pretty much a bygone era. So that means they're going to have to find a way to bring customers back. I don't know how many times you can take them off before you're going to get to the point that you're going to start to see a real reduction in future flights. Now, I'm glad they're assigning seats. Thank you for that, Southwest, because what you're doing is you're getting rid of the Black Friday boarding mentality. Thank God for that. The idea that you're giving us the opportunity to pay more for a premium seat, totally for that. Thank you. I understand about the checking bags. Now, I still haven't been given a real clear indication on how much they're going to charge, but I understand that from a business standpoint. The idea here with the voucher limits is something that I simply don't get. And it tells me the bean counters have taken over. Now, let me step back real quick to the bag situation that's coming up in next month. Passengers are going to be told that they're going to be charged for checked luggage. You know what that's going to do? You're going to have somebody looking at that bag going, if I take this to the gate, there's a chance I can cram this onto the flight and not have to pay for the bag. The problem is I'm hearing from some in Southwest that work for Southwest, and they're telling me, because I'm asking what's going to happen if I bring my too big bag to the ticket or to the gate area. Now, in the past, most airlines just do a gate check. Sorry, you're going to have to check that. I'm being told, and I could be totally, totally wrong here, they're going to send you back to the ticket counter.
Wow.
Double wow. Now, again, that may not be the case, but Southwest is not known for their advanced technology, and they may not have the ability at the gate to collect the bag fees. They should. I don't know that they do. But if they adopt a policy, oh my gosh, you talk about social media getting ready to explode. You send people back to the ticket counter with their bags, and they are going to arrive after the cutoff, meaning the bag is now no longer going to make that flight. And the passenger getting back through security may not make the flight. So it is going to be you think chaos is a word, it's going to be chaos on steroids. So Southwest Airlines, please, 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 please don't do this, because you're just going to blow yourself up. And they're getting to the point that in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this is the same path other airlines have followed that have eventually gone out of business.
Well, the voice of Jay Ratliff, if you're listening to the podcast of the program later, that's Jay Ratliff, aviation travel expert, jratliff.com, RATLIFF, jratliff.com. If you're not having the chance to watch the program live and you're just listening, that's Jay Ratliff, jratliff.com. Jay, one more quick story before we kind of see what it's like to move about the country. I'm interested because I'm flying again today. The FAA has issued a concern, and it's a concern about lavatories or the bathrooms in the airplanes becoming detached. Of all my years of flying, I've never heard of this, but why is this a concern now?
Got me doing a double take. I can promise you that. I thought detached from what? Of course, the first image, and it's not a correct one, is detached as in falling through the floor of the airplane and down to the ground you go. That's not what we're talking about, but it was an interesting word. The lavatory itself is a single pod, if you will, that is attached into or slid into the aircraft fuselage and secured. The entire pod itself of the lavatory. So the what they're finding is that some of the hardware that connects and secures the pod of the lavatory to the bottom of the fuselage, or to the bottom, is becoming corroded. And it's becoming corroded because the floor of the lavatory apparently becomes damp after a while. Now, I think you and I both know why it becomes damp. Some people say, oh, that's because people wash their hands. I'm like, no, it's not because of that. You can blame it on the men or what have you. But the thought is that damp floor could actually lead to some corrosion that could cause those fittings to fail. Meaning that if there was a high G event, turbulence, or what have you, that pod could shift in such a way that it would detach from the outer aircraft, if you would, and you wouldn't be able to get out of the lavatory. Now, I don't know all the specifics on this because the FAA hasn't really come through on much of it, and I'm waiting for a lot of my mechanic friends that work for the major airlines to give me the internal airworthiness directive that's going to come from this. But yeah, I mean, I've never had to go to the lavatory worried about, am I going to make it back? Am I going to be able to get out of there? We have had situations where the door is jammed, the locks have jammed, and the FAA has ordered some replacement parts to try to prevent that from happening in the future. But the idea of a lavatory becoming detached, if that doesn't get your attention on a headline, I don't know what does.
You're minding your own business and you're standing there, sitting there, and all of a sudden you're sliding across the plane. Going,
that's right. Yeah, it's going to be flush and run. I'm telling you, that's exactly what's going to take place there.
Jay Ratliff, what's it like today to move across the country? I'm flying back to Dallas today from Denver. I'm looking. It looks nice here.
Oh, yeah. In fact, most of the country today is going to be a pretty good shape. We had some issues early this morning. We're still fighting de-icing delays. Now, that's nothing to you, obviously, but goodness, it's April 17th. Easter's coming up this weekend. We've got, please, de-icing delays. Let's get past this cold weather, but we're still having it, and that represented most of the delays this morning. We've had some rough weather this week, but fortunately, as we move towards the weekend, a lot of that weather's kind of subsiding, and I certainly hope that continues. So, yeah, if you picked today, you picked a good one to fly.
Jay Ratliff, aviation travel expert. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for hopping on the program as you do every Thursday at this time, and glad we could get that connection. I thought I had failed to send him the link, but he had the link, and it all works out. I took the blame. I was willing to take one for the team. All right, a couple of things I want to remind you. Coming up May the 17th, 1 month from today. 1 month from today. I repeat, 1 month from today is our casino gala for my charity Rivers Promise. Would love to have you attend if you haven't. I think the website's back up, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. It's May 17th. It's at the Omni Interlaken Resort and Hotel in Broomfield, Colorado. There is a room rate special that if you registered for the event, you'll get a link and you can get special room rates for a day or so, that one night, 2 nights. It doesn't matter. They'll take care of you there. But it's riverspromise.org. At the top of the screen, you should see check out our events, and it should be back and working. As I announced earlier, we had a big transition going on the backside of our website the last 24 hours, and so some of you might have had some issues. But let me know if you still do. You can just email info at Jimmy Lakey, and we'll look into it. But it should be back up and running. Go check it out. Get registered. We're 1 month away, and I'm warning you, prices do go up here in just a couple of I got to find out the date, but go ahead and get registered. That's very helpful for us, and it's going to save you some money as well. It's all for charity. Our goal is to raise some money that night, and again, your admission, your ticket goes to part of that fundraising goal, and we'll have some silent auction and live music. It's going to be a great night, and you don't want to miss it. But it's the Casino Gala, May 17th at the Omni, presented by our friends in Longmont, Colorado, Budget Home Supply. And if you're out of state, it's a great resort, great hotel, and we should have some great weather 1 month from today. I'd love for you to get registered. Riverspromise.org or riverspromise.com. Either way, it gets you to the same spot. At least it should. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to run. I'll be broadcasting again tomorrow from what we call the Big D, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Headed back there once again. And so let's see. Tomorrow I'll do the show from the Big D. Monday I'll do the show from the Big D. And Tuesday we're taking a day off, and I'll explain that to you. Tuesday is going to be a great day for you to catch up on all the podcasting that we're launching out there on the Lakey Unleashed. So anyway, a couple more shows and 1 day off, and then back. And just have to take a day off on Tuesday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you tuning in today. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.